Hello everyone. So it is almost the end of 2024, and one thing that I have noticed is that there have been 28 different new releases of complexion products that I have tried out, including skin tints and concealers and foundations, and I have reviewed many of those on this channel, but I thought that what I would do at this point is to do a few videos where I talk about all of these products and to give you my final thoughts on them, and also to show you what they look like on my skin as I am applying them. And so for this video, I thought I would start with the skin tints, and so there are 7 of those that I've tried out this year, and so I will be giving you some information on all of those, and then in some future videos I'll be reviewing the rest of the products. And so first, a little bit of information about me. I am 60 years old and I have dry and very sensitive skin, and I've never had any kind of cosmetic procedures like injections or surgery, and I'm not really intending to do that. And so I am especially looking for makeup products that can help me to look a little fresher and a little bit younger without exacerbating the look of my wrinkles and without causing my skin any kind of irritation at all. And over the past 4 years, I've tried well over 1,000 makeup products, most of them high-end or luxury, and so I do have a pretty good basis of comparison for everything that I discuss here on this channel. And one thing that I have realized is that there are certain ingredients that always do irritate my sensitive skin, and I know that those ingredients tend to be very irritating for many other people as well, so I just don't talk about products with those ingredients on this channel. Now, one thing that I will note with makeup in general, and maybe foundations in particular, is that if I put on a particular kind of primer, that in a lot of cases it can allow me to tolerate foundations a little bit better. And so one product that I use very frequently is called the Ilia Base Face Milk, and that was a new product that was released this year. And I do think that it provides some nice protection against other products that I am putting on my face if they happen to have ingredients that are slightly irritating, and that it also just works nicely to both hydrate my skin and also to serve as a nice base that most makeup seems to do better over. So I do usually use that, and that's what I used as a base for all the foundations that I put on in the video footage. But it also is the case that I am trying on all of these different foundations on my bare skin as well, just to see how they perform. And another thing that I will note is that a lot of times when I'm not actually trying out new foundations, I actually tend to just wear concealer and not to actually wear liquid foundation at all on my skin. And I think that the more that I have been really vigilant in terms of avoiding any kind of skin care or any kind of makeup that does irritate my skin, the better that my skin has gotten, and the better that I am able to look, even if I'm not wearing any kind of liquid foundation. And I do think it's kind of a good thing not to wear a liquid foundation every day and to give my skin a chance to just be on its own. And the kind of foundation that I tend to avoid the most are foundations that contain silicones. And I think that the reason for that is not that the silicones are irritating to my skin in and of themselves. They seem to be pretty inert, but rather that because when I have silicone on my face, it's kind of providing a pretty tight barrier, and it is trapping things like dirt and oil and dead skin cells and bacteria and fungi and all kinds of stuff under there. And what I do find is that if I wear that kind of foundation very often, that my skin quality does tend to decline. So I tend to save that for times that I'm really feeling like I want to be wearing a foundation with some coverage in it rather than on an everyday basis. So one thing that I have done is to keep track of all of the makeup products that I have tried that are still on the market, and I have given them letter grades, and I've divided them up by skin tints versus foundations, and also silicone versus non-silicone, and then I put the SPF ones on their own lists. And so if we look at the list with the skin tints that don't have silicone in them, the ones that I have used the most are, first of all, the Hourglass one, which I think is actually a really nice foundation. It does have a little bit more pigment in it, so I think it's somewhere on the borderline between being a skin tint and a foundation. And I think that that one's a quite expensive one, but I do think that that has been a particularly good product for me. And I keep being surprised at the fact that that actually doesn't have silicone in it, because it does perform really, really well, and my skin does really seem to like it quite a bit. And there is one from Jane Iredale that has a little bit of pigment in it, but I think that that one is really a little bit more like a primer, because even though it does have some tint in it, it really seems to not provide much of a coverage on my face at all. But I do think that that one helps with the texture a lot, and I do think that that one provides a really good base for other kinds of makeup. And so if I'm putting on something that I think might be a little bit irritating to my skin, then that Jane Iredale one, the Hydra Pure, that is one that I definitely will reach for. And then a product that is very similar to that Jane Iredale one, but that has more pigment in it, is the one from Rose Incorporated. And I do like that one a lot, but I am not sure that Rose Incorporated is going to stay in business. They got sold last year, and the model that the company is named after, she has said that she's not affiliated with them at all now. And so I'm kind of wondering how long that brand is going to be around. But I do like that one foundation from them very much. Now, there are some skin tints that have silicone in them that I do think are nice products and that I haven't minded wearing at all. But what I will say is that I haven't really worn them all that much, just on a general basis for no reason, and not having anything to do with trying them out for this channel. And I think that the reason for that is that my feeling is, again, that if I'm going to wear a product that has silicone in it, then I'm doing it for a particular reason. And generally because it's a product that I really like in terms of the coverage that it's giving me, or because it has some sunscreen in it that I feel like I need. And in this case, the products are ones that I feel like are more optional, and I do feel like there are some products out there that work well for me that don't have those silicones in them. So I tend not to reach for these, and I think that that's relevant because most of the products that were released this year that were skin tints, they do have silicones in them. And the other thing that I want to note is that probably when it comes to skin tint type products, the ones that I tend to use the most are listed on the page that has foundations that are non-silicone. And so there's 3 products here that I tend to use quite frequently. And for those products, I will mix them with a moisturizer to create my own tinted moisturizer. And I feel like all 3 of these have worked really, really well for me. And so the first one here is a product that is made by Chanel, and this is actually just a concealer, and it comes in a little pot, and it is quite expensive. It's I think $105 last time I checked. And if I mix that with one of my good moisturizers, like for instance the Outset Daily Moisturizer, I think that that makes a really, really lovely little product that provides just a little bit of coverage, and I can put more of the Chanel product in it if I want a little more coverage. But in any case, I think that the look of that product on my skin is really, really pretty and natural looking, and it does improve the texture of my skin, and I do really enjoy wearing it, and I do think it's okay for my skin. And it's a little bit annoying to use that product if you just leave it in the regular container, because it comes in a really large jar, and you have to dip your fingers into it or dip a little tool into it. But what I tend to do is to put some of that into a small jar that I can just dip my fingers in, smudge it on my hand, and then mix it together with some moisturizer and then just put it on my face. And there are a couple of videos that I've done that I've demonstrated that. So there's a couple of different Chanel videos that I showed off this particular foundation mixture that I have used on my face pretty frequently. And then another product that I like is the Tinted Moisturizer from Typology. And again, that is a skincare company, and that particular foundation has a lot of skincare benefits in it, and I do feel like that has been pretty good for my face. And I do think it's really too thick for me, and that it does exacerbate the look of my wrinkles a little bit, but that if I thin it down with some moisturizer, I think that that is also a really lovely product for my skin, and it works really well. And I would like to see them have a few more shades, but I do have 2 different shades of that, and I have found that I'm kind of halfway between the lightest shade and the second lightest shade, but that either one of them will work for me, especially if I do mix it with a moisturizer. And then the third product that I actually use quite frequently is from Youthforia, and this is a product that they have said is supposed to be one that is good enough in terms of the ingredients that you can sleep in it. Now, I am not going to sleep in my foundation, obviously, and I think that probably the reason that they took that tack is because they were trying to suggest it as a foundation for people that didn't really necessarily identify with having sensitive skin. And I'm not sure they're all that good at marketing at Youthforia, but in terms of the quality of that foundation, I do think it is really, really good, and that my skin does really like it. And that even though there are a lot of foundations out there now that I don't feel like are appreciably irritating to my skin, I do feel like this one is the gentlest one, and that it does look really good on my skin when I mix it with a moisturizer. And that one is made in Korea, and I do feel like it does exacerbate the look of my wrinkles when I use it at full strength, but when I mix it with that Outset moisturizer, I do think that it looks really, really pretty on my skin. And I did do a whole video on that particular foundation. And then when it comes to foundations that are offering like medium coverage, then there are some silicone foundations that I do like and that my skin does seem to be able to tolerate and that I do wear when I want to look particularly nice. And so I do think that, you know, I'm happy that I have products like this available. They're just not ones that I'm wearing on a daily basis. And then, of course, there are some tinted moisturizers that have sunscreens in them, and in some cases, those are not really designed to put very much of that product on the skin, and you're really not going to be getting that much sun protection from these particular products. But I think that more and more companies are introducing sunscreens that do have a tint to them, so they do match the skin better, and that they are appropriate to put a larger amount on the skin, and that they can actually serve as a main sunscreen. And so I am really happy to see that, especially when they are foundations that actually do look good on me. And so now let's talk about the 7 different skin tints that I tried out this year. And so the first one is BB Burst, and this one is from Kosas. And this one I feel has been disqualified because it does include one of the ingredients that is now on my list of ingredients that I am trying in general to avoid. And those are what are called sunscreen boosters. And what sunscreen boosters are is actually chemical sunscreens that are really exactly like the chemical sunscreens that have been approved for use in sunscreen products, but that have never been submitted to the FDA. And so they are not actually approved as being sunscreens, even though in terms of their chemical structure and in terms of how well they work, they seem to be exactly the same types of products. So when I tried out the BB Burst product last year, I did find that it was really irritating to my skin. And so I did look into all of the ingredients to try to figure out which of them was the real ones that were really irritating to me. And what I did realize is that there is an ingredient that is in that product that is called butylloctyl salicylate, or BOS, and that is one of those sunscreen boosters, and that it is very, very similar in terms of its chemical structure to the approved sunscreen that is called octisalate. And I did find an article that was written by some Harvard dermatologists and professors that did do some studies that showed that this particular sunscreen booster by itself, that it actually did absorb the rays of the sun, and that it did actually become absorbed into the body in the way that regular sunscreens do. And then when I went back and I looked at all of the sunscreens that I had previously tried, I realized that most of them did include these sunscreen boosters. So this is the most common one, and then there's a couple other similar ones that are called tridecyl salicylate. And then there's one that's called ethyl ferulate, which works very similar to other chemical sunscreens that are on the market as well. And what I found is that all of the products that included those sunscreens on them did irritate my skin. And then when I started to try products that did not actually have those ingredients in them and that actually were real mineral sunscreens and that only contained zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, I found that those were actually much more tolerable to me, and that they either were really minimally irritating or that they were not irritating at all. So therefore, I concluded that it really is not a good idea for me to be bothering with these sunscreen boosters at all, and so I have just stopped purchasing or even really looking very hard at any sunscreens that have those ingredients in them. Now, interestingly, the BB Burst product is not even labeled as being a sunscreen, even though it has BOS listed as the fourth ingredient after water, and even though it has zinc oxide listed as the first ingredient after water. So this really looks like a sunscreen formula to me. And my guess here is that the people from Kosas concluded that this was a nice enough product that people would like it even if they didn't realize that it was a sunscreen, and that testing it as being a sunscreen would cost a lot of money, and so they just didn't bother to do it. But they did put it in packaging that was bright yellow and that made it look like it actually had to do with the sun, and I think there's good reason for that. I think they're trying to imply to you that it is a sunscreen even though it's not labeled as one. And then in addition, that product also includes a product that's called phenethyl alcohol, which is a product that's made in a laboratory, and it's a scent ingredient that's used in the perfumery industry as a rose note, and so that is another product that my skin does not like very much. So it really is not a big surprise that my skin did not like this one, since it has two different ingredients in it that do seem to be really irritating for me. Now, I did try this product out on my skin before I realized that I was reacting to it or that it had ingredients in it that were problematic for me. And I do think it looked kind of pretty on my skin. I like these other skin tints. It doesn't give a lot of coverage, but I do think it was kind of nice in terms of providing some prettiness in terms of the hydration to the skin. But it did irritate my skin quite a bit, so I have eliminated that from consideration for things that I might try, and I'm not real eager to put it on my skin even to demonstrate it, because it does do a kind of a number on my skin. But I did try that product out in the Kosas video, and so if you're interested in taking a look at that, then you can see what it looks like on my skin in that video. And so now let's talk about the other 6 skin tints that I have not disqualified from consideration. And I will start with the most expensive one, and then I will work down to the least expensive one. And I think that the price range here is $70 for the most expensive of these and $32 for the least expensive. So the first one is from Chantecaille, and this is called Just Skin Tinted Moisturizer Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 15. And this one was reformulated in 2024, and what they primarily seem to have done is to take the cyclic silicones out of it and to replace them with other silicones. Now, some people say that cyclic silicones are worse for the environment than regular silicones, and I'm not sure that that's even necessarily the case, but nonetheless, a lot of companies are taking the cyclic silicones out of their products, and so Chantecaille was one of those. And in addition, they made the tube size a lot smaller, and they reduced the price a bit so that I guess people can try it out more easily. So if you're looking to try this out, it's a little bit less expensive than it was in the past. But if you are a big fan of this foundation, then it probably is going to be a lot more expensive on a per gram basis than it was in the past. And this is made in Japan, and it comes in 12 shades, and a couple of the shades seem to be designed for people with darker skin tones, but really this seems to be a foundation that is inordinately tilted towards people that have lighter skin tones, and so that's a little bit unfortunate that when they redid the foundation that they didn't offer a few more different shades. And Chantecaille, by the way, is a French company that was founded by a woman named Sylvie Chantecaille, who was a veteran of the makeup and skincare industry and who founded Prescriptives for Estee Lauder. So it's a little bit ironic because Prescriptives did a really good job of offering a whole variety of different skin tones that were really designed to match your skin tone and exactly. And in this case, there really aren't all that many skin tones that are available, so that's kind of too bad. And they were purchased last year by a big German company that owns a lot of other different kinds of makeup companies. And so Sylvie Chantecaille does not own that company anymore. And so what they are saying about this product is that it doesn't include any fragrance, microplastics, parabens, or cyclic silicones now. And in terms of the sunscreen that is in this, this is a titanium dioxide sunscreen, and it doesn't have any chemical sunscreens in it. And the two darkest shades of this, which are intended for darker skin tones, those do not have SPF in them because they said that they were not able to make that with the SPF without compromising the look of the formula. And the product that I purchased was called Bliss, and that is described as being light with peach undertones. And I do think that that has been a really good shade for my face, and that in general, anytime anything says peach, then I get really excited. And I do think that this has been a nice product for me in terms of my shade match. And so what they are claiming about this foundation, they are saying that it gives the skin a natural, radiant appearance, that it refines the appearance of skin, and that it makes the skin look more even and reduces the appearance of pores, and that it is supposed to have a variety of hydrating, smoothing, botanical actives that are supposed to improve the skin over time, and therefore that it's operating supposedly as a mixture of a foundation product and as a skincare product. And so I looked at the ingredients in this particular product, and the one that concerns me a little bit is the elkhorn sea moss extract. So this is a product that does include some skincare benefits, and so that part is good, but the problem with, I think, all these kinds of sea moss is that they have the potential of being contaminated with other kinds of issues that might be present in the sea, such as heavy metals or, for instance, cyanobacteria toxins. And so I always am a little bit wary whenever I see these kinds of ingredients on the list, because I feel like there could be really good skincare benefits, but in some cases, these particular products that include these sea ingredients like this can irritate my skin, even if I'm not seeing any other ingredients in there that I think are suspicious. And I think it is because of that contamination issue. So with Chantecaille, for instance, I tried all three of their foundations, and the one that irritated my skin quite a lot and that really wasn't prevented from a primer was the Cushion foundation, and that one did include a sea ingredient in it also. But this particular foundation seems to be fine. But if it's really just a contamination issue, then I'm not certain that if I purchased this again, if that would also be fine. So I guess what I would suggest with regard to any foundations or any kind of skincare products that have products from the sea in it like that is that you really want to try those products as soon as you get them home to make sure that they are going to be okay for your skin if you are suspicious about them like I am, and then you want to send them back to the company right away is if you do get irritation, and of course you want to buy them from a company that will take them back. And I do think that Chantecaille is quite good about taking products back if they are irritating, and I think that most of the retailers that sell Chantecaille products, at least in the United States, will take them back. Now, when it comes to other countries, that may be a different story, unfortunately. And then in terms of the other ingredients that are in this product, I'm really just seeing a whole lot of silicones in this product and some glycerin, which is a hydrator that will keep moisturizer in the skin. And then there's a lot of botanicals, which are not necessarily always recognized as having skincare benefits, but that some people do think can be helpful. So, for instance, Edelweiss is supposed to be a plant with vitamin C and antioxidants, and Terra extract is supposed to be good for skin tightening, and butterfly bush is supposed to be good for wound healing or for anti-inflammatory types of effects, and thyme is also supposed to be antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. And then green tea, of course, is an antioxidant fighting free radicals and UV, offering UV protection maybe, and also being anti-inflammatory. And they say that honeysuckle is supposed to be good for premature aging and hydration. And then superoxide dismutase is supposed to be an antioxidant that is protecting the skin from damage. And so in general, I think that what we're saying here is that they're including a lot of botanicals that at least they think have benefits for the skin. Whether or not that's proven to your satisfaction is another question. But what I would say when I try this product is that I do think that my skin does like it, and I don't mind wearing this product at all, and I haven't had issues getting it off, so that part has been good. But in general, I do think that my skin looks nice in the short term, that this provides a little bit more of a dewy look on my skin than a lot of these other products do. I think a lot of the other products tend to be a little bit on the dry side, and even though this one doesn't include ingredients like squalane or sodium hyaluronate, it does give my skin a look of being dewy, and it does feel good on my skin, and I don't think it has been irritating for my skin at all. And I think that even though it does have a little bit of a dewy look to it, it is not a foundation that is one that requires powder at all. So it looks perfectly fine, even if I don't put powder on it. I don't feel like my hair is sticking to it. It does have a nice texture to it, and I think it does look pretty. And I think that it works really well for me both during the summer months, and I did use it quite a bit over the summer. And I think it also looks nice on my skin in the winter, and I don't think that it's too drying. So I think that that has been a nice thing. And I don't think that it has caused really any noticeable exacerbation of wrinkles at all. And I do think that Chantecaille is a brand that is supposed to be particularly targeting women who are getting a bit older, and so therefore I think that they do think a lot about that issue. And for this product especially, and for the other foundations that I've tried, I think that they all have looked very nice on my maturing skin, and that they have worked really, really well for me. So that part has been really good. And so in the video footage, what I did for the video footage is I just put on a little bit of the Ilia base face, and then I put on the foundation with my fingers for each of these different foundations, and then I kind of brushed it on using a stiff brush so that it would get kind of evenly spread into my skin, and to look like it was as natural as possible. So that is usually how I personally apply foundation, and most of these companies have suggested that that is a good way to apply foundation as well. And then for each of the foundations that I'm demonstrating for this video, I put on just a couple of other makeup products as well, just to give it a little bit more of a finished look. So for each of them, I am using the Jones Road Brow Pencil, which is a good way for me to put on a brow really fast that I think looks fairly plausible. This particular brow pencil has some little fibers in the pencil, and so therefore it gives my brows a little bit of texture and makes them look a little bit more natural to me than one that just is a regular pencil. And then in addition, I use the Chantecaille Sunstone Collection Powder Blush that I purchased this year in a shade that was called Energy, and that might still be on the Chantecaille website. And I did really like this product. It started out being really expensive, but I do like the way it performs, and I think it looks really nice on my skin. I think it's a lot like the RMS blushes, though. And then I also put on a little bit of a lip tint from Chantecaille, and this was also from their Sunstone collection. And so these are really cute little lipsticks, and I tend to carry these around in my purse. And I think that these feel good on my lips, and they're really probably my favorite lip product that Chantecaille makes. Occasionally they will introduce them as part of their special lines. And so now let's talk about the Dolce & Gabbana product. And so this is called the Blueberry Nutri-Tint, and it is $52 for 1 ounce. It's in a plastic bottle with a little squeezy nozzle here that you can squeeze out a few drops. And it is made in Italy, and it's available in 30 different shades. And it's available on the Dolce & Gabbana website, and then it's available in quite a few different department stores. And what they say on the website is that it is designed for 24 hours of hydration and a healthy skin glow with sheer to buildable coverage and a blurring effect, and that the ingredients in it include blueberry from Salento, which I guess is an area of Italy, that enhances the skin's radiance, and it includes glycerol glucoside for hydration. And so apart from that, it really just includes a variety of different silicones, and it includes talc as the third ingredient in there. So it's a little bit unusual to see talc in a foundation product. I do think a lot of companies are moving away from using talc, but I do think that the primary issue with talc is if it is in a powder product that you might breathe in, because talc can be contaminated with asbestos, and so that is something that you really do not want to be breathing in if that is the case. And so I think that that is the main reason that talc has been removed from many different products. So in a skin tint like that, then breathing it in would not be an issue. And then also in this skin tint, I do see that it has lactic acid in it, so that should be slightly exfoliating for the skin as well. And so they are saying that it's supposed to be hydrating, giving the skin radiance, making the skin look more evened, refreshing the skin. It's supposed to have antioxidant benefits to it, and it is supposed to be breathable. And the breathable part, that part is actually good in terms of my being interested in the product. And in terms of applying it, I do think that when I have applied it, it has a little bit of an odd texture to it. It almost feels slightly chalky, maybe, and I think that's probably from the talc, and I haven't really dealt with too many skin tints that have had talc in them, so that's a little bit unusual probably, especially that high on the ingredient list. But I do think that when I put it on my skin, it actually is looking really nice and it's feeling really nice. And I do really like the way that it looks on my skin, and I don't feel like this product has been irritating for me at all. And I don't think that it has exacerbated the look of my wrinkles at all. And I think that it actually does look fresh and nice, and it stays in place fairly well as far as I'm concerned. So in general, I do kind of like this product, and I do feel comfortable wearing it. Now, it does have that silicone in it, and so that is a little bit of a disincentive for me to wear it. But in terms of being able to feel like my skin is breathing a little bit, I think it is very nice. I don't feel like this is one of those foundations that my skin is sweating and that the moisture is not dissipating or anything like that. And I do think that it looks pretty on my skin, and I haven't had a problem getting this one off at all, so that part is good also. So all in all, I do really like this product, and I also really like all of the other Dolce & Gabbana products that I have tried. So I put on in this video the Dolce & Gabbana Face and Eyes Match Bronzer in the second lightest shade. So I actually picked up both of the shades of those, and this is actually my favorite bronzer of all in terms of powder bronzers. I do really like the way that it looks on my skin. I like this formula. I think it's a very nice, soft formula, and I think that in terms of the shade, it's a little bit more on the peachy side. It's not trying to be a contour, and I think that if I'm trying to simulate a bit of a tan, I think it looks very, very pretty on me anyway. And then I also have their blush in the shade Joyful Peach, and this is actually exactly the same formula as the bronzer. It just has a bit more color in it, and I do think that that is a very pretty color as well. And then also I am using the Dolce & Gabbana My Comfy Matte Lipstick in the shade My 1981. And I do think this is a very nice lipstick. It is not scented, and I do think that it goes on my lips very nice, and it stays in place very nicely. And I did just order another shade of this lipstick, so I am looking forward to trying that out as well. Now, Dolce & Gabbana does have 4 different lipstick lines that they have introduced during the past month or so, and 3 of those are permanent ones. One is a satin, one is a lip tint, and then there is a holiday collection of a totally different formula of lipsticks. And 2 of them do have a scent in them that I think is one that I'm really trying to avoid, both a strong ethyl vanillin scent apparently, and then also ethylene brosselae, which is like a musk scent. And so I didn't pick up those, and I did hear rumors that the holiday set had a scent also, so I was not really interested in picking that one up. But these matte ones are totally unscented, and I do really like them, and I think that that's supposed to be the sort of the star of this line. They have the most shades, and people seem to be the most excited about that. And based on the one that I have so far, I do really like it a lot. And I did pick up actually a couple more products from Dolce & Gabbana before the end of the year, and so I think I do want to talk about them a little bit more in another video, because this has turned out to be, I think, a really good line of products, and it's not outrageously priced, and I don't think people have focused on it nearly enough as far as I'm concerned. And then the next product is from Lisa Eldridge, and so this is called the Seamless Skin Enhancing Tint, and it is $49. This is made by a very small company that is in France, like a husband and wife type of a company, and it is currently available in 19 different shades. And according to Lisa Eldridge, it is supposed to be made up of 78% skincare ingredients, so it is supposed to be offering you good quality skin, and she's saying that it's for replenished, healthy, and plumped-looking skin. And then she is also saying that it is supposed to seamlessly even tone, lift shadows, tone down redness, and boost luminosity. And that the ultra lightweight texture delivers a burst of hydration while similarly delivering blurring pigments to perfect and even the skin tone. And this is $49, and so it is just slightly less expensive than the Dolce & Gabbana one, but basically around the same price. And so this one does include quite a few ingredients in there that I would recognize as being serious skincare ingredients. So it includes glycerin, it includes prickly pear seed oil, which is supposed to be good for aging skin, and it has sunflower seed oil, which is, as long as it hasn't gone rancid yet, it includes a variety of different skincare benefits that are supposed to be calming and hydrating and moisturizing. And it has squalane in it and cocoa caprolate, which is usually derived from coconut, but it tends not to have the negatives of coconut for most people. And vitamin E, and then it says it has no fragrance, alcohol, essential oils, mineral oils, talc, parabens, microplastics, PFAs, or gluten, and that it is vegan and cruelty-free, and no cyclic silicones. And I would say that personally for me, I found this to be a nice looking product on my skin, but I did find that especially when I used it without a primer, that it was just very slightly irritating to my skin, and that made me a little bit less inclined to actually use it. And I'm not sure exactly what the reason for that is. When I look at the ingredient list, I'm not seeing anything that I consider to be really problematic. I think it might be that the salicylic acid that is in it, that is something that I do think that my skin is not crazy about, and that might be giving my skin just a little bit of irritation. I don't feel like it's been a major problem, but whenever my skin does not feel quite right after I use a product, then that makes me a little disinclined to use it on a regular basis. And I would say that after I use this product, my skin is in okay shape, but I don't feel like it is the same as putting skincare on my skin. I think that my skin is a little bit more dubious about this product than you might think based on what Lisa Eldridge is saying in terms of the ingredients. But a lot of people do really like this product, and so maybe there are a lot of people that whatever is irritating my skin that is in it are not irritated by it. And it is a product that I do feel like I am able to wear. In terms of how it looks on my skin, I think it looks okay. I don't think it's massively exacerbating the look of my wrinkles, but you can see what you think on camera. I think that some of these other products that I have tried on do look a little bit better on me. But in general, you know, a lot of people really, really like this one and just kind of rave about it. And I think it's pretty good, and I would be willing to wear it on occasion, and I have worn it on occasion. But I think that when it comes to all of the products that I tried out for this video, this is wouldn't probably be the one that I would pick as the top one, which I think a lot of people would pick it as the top pick for all the things that they tried this year in terms of skin tints. And by the way, in this particular formula, I am using the shade T3, and I do think that this has been a very good match, and in general, I do seem to be getting some good matches from the Lisa Eldridge foundation and from this skin tint. And then in terms of the other products that I put on for this look, Lisa Eldridge does not have a blush at present, and so I just used one of my favorite blush releases for the year. And this is from Kosas. It's just their powder blush, which is called Blush is Life, and I just put on a little bit of a color that is called Dreamland. And then I did get out one of my Lisa Eldridge lipsticks, and this is in the Luxuriously Lucent formula, which I still think is probably my favorite formula from her, including all of the lipsticks that she has put out. And this is in the color Spirited Away, which is just a little bit reddish. And then the next skin tint is from RMS, and this is called the SunCoverup Super Tint, and it actually has an SPF of 50 in it, and it is made in the US, and it is priced at $49, and it just has 13 shades. And in terms of the sunscreen that is present in this, it just lists zinc oxide, and it states that it is a non-nano zinc oxide. And there are no sunscreen boosters, and there aren't any chemical sunscreens. And my feeling about this product is that it is really quite different than all of the other products that I talked about today, and that it's really different than most of the tinted moisturizers that do include sunscreen that I have tried. And the reason is because I do think that this seems to be designed primarily as a sunscreen that is going to really provide a full type of a protection from the sun in terms of the kind that you would get from wearing just a regular sunscreen, and that it just has a little bit of a tint in it as a bonus. And so I think that most of the time when you buy a tinted moisturizer, you're not going to want to put on very much of it because it doesn't really look too good on your skin. But I do think that in this case it is really designed to put on a substantial amount. And so when I have been using this, I've primarily been testing it out by using 2 pumps on my face. And I do think that when I do that, I'm getting fairly close to the 1/4 teaspoon that is recommended for using on your whole face to give you the kind of sun protection that is listed on the SPF. And this sunscreen does remind me quite a bit of a couple of other sunscreens that I've tried, ones that are just supposed to be sun protection without any tint in them. So the first one of those is the Lion Pose Ghostbuster sunscreen, and it is supposed to have a new form of zinc oxide in it that does not have a white tint, but that also is not a nanoparticle one. And it also is the case that the Hydra Sheer sunscreen from the outset seems a lot like that as well. That one is not quite as thick, and I think that the reason for that is because it is only SPF 30 rather than SPF 45 like the Ghostbuster one or SPF 50 like this one. But in all of these cases, I think that these are sunscreens that are very gentle on my skin, that haven't caused any irritation, but that are not really giving at least my light skin a white cast. And so with this one, I actually think that I did make a mistake in buying the lightest shade. So there are 13 shades, and I purchased one that's called Alabaster. And the reason was because when I looked at the swatches, both on their website and that I had seen other people that were reviewing the product do, it looked like there was a really big jump between the lightest shade and the second lightest shade. And I was a little bit afraid that if I got one that was too dark, that it would be really difficult for me to use at all. But I think that I really should have done that, and that actually the amount of tint that is in this product is fairly small. And that is why I actually am including it in the video here with the other skin tints, because I do think that it's really not providing a lot of coverage to the skin in terms of the coverage level. And so even though this does look pretty white when it comes out of the container, and even though I do worry about it a little bit, I think that when it actually gets on my skin, it's just providing a little bit more whiteness than I would actually prefer, and that I can just use a little tiny bit of a bronzer on it, and it kind of softens it up a little bit. So I am finding that I'm able to use this, and I may very well go back and buy a deeper tint when we get a little bit closer to summer. And in terms of how this feels on the skin, I do think that this tends to be fairly dewy feeling on the skin, and that it does have a lot of moisturizing and hydrating ingredients in it. And so what they list on the label is shea butter and glycerin and cocoa caprate, which is probably a coconut derivative, and bisabolol and organic jojoba oil and olive oil and squalane. And it also has some niacinamide in it, and it also has some diatomaceous earth. And so that is a lot of moisturizing and hydrating type ingredients. And I do think that my skin does like this product a lot, both in terms of feeling like it is being moisturized and also in terms of it not being irritating. I don't feel like this has been irritating for me at all. And in terms of it having all those moisturizing ingredients in it, I do think that it goes on my skin fairly wet, and that it does take a little bit of time to dry. And I have been generally using a little bit of powder over it, but in general I think it performs pretty well, especially considering that it has all those moisturizing ingredients in it. And I don't feel like it's really sticky, and I don't think that it's as much of a problem with regard to the amount of moisture and stickiness that it's giving me compared to some of the other foundations that I have used. And one other thing to know about this RMS foundation is that it doesn't include any silicones in it. And so the fact that it is actually looking really good on my skin, that is even more of a surprise considering that. And this product does have a pretty long ingredient list, and a lot of these ingredients are organic herbs, and supposedly these are adaptogenic herbs, and they're ones that RMS has used in some of their other products as well. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of a scent in this that I am detecting, and I don't think that any of these ingredients has a marked scent to them. And so I have felt that it has been fine, and again, it hasn't been irritating at all, and I don't think that the smell has been bothersome to me. And the thing that I think is really surprising about this skin tint is that even though it does have all that sunscreen in it, and even though it does go on my skin fairly thick, and even though I've been using a lot of it, I really don't feel like it has been exacerbating the look of my wrinkles at all. I think my skin actually does look quite good when I have it on, and that is a little bit of a breakthrough, really, and that does make me feel like, especially when I'm really looking for sun protection, that I probably will be wearing this one. Now, for my primary sun protection, I do rely on my Sunday afternoons hats, which have a really wide brim and which have SPF 50, and I do think that those do a really good job of protecting my skin from becoming any darker, and certainly I haven't gotten any sunburns or anything like that at all on my face in 20 or 30 years. And primarily I do wear hats, and I am pretty religious with regard to wearing hats anytime I am going to be outside at all. But nonetheless, I do like to have some sunscreens that I can wear if I'm going to be getting more exposure to the sun. And I think that this may turn out to be one of the ones that I really like, because I think it does look really, really good on my skin. And I think that it probably is providing me quite a lot of protection from the sun. Now, the thing that I found to be a downside and that I felt at the beginning was almost a deal killer for me is the fact that this does seem to cling very tenaciously to my skin, and that it does seem to be really, really difficult to remove, even with an oil cleanse or a double cleanse, using an oil cleanse first. And so it does say on the ingredient list that this is supposed to be a long-wearing product, and I do think that it probably is the case that they added some things to it that would make it stick to the skin a bit better rather than just all melting off, and so that probably was necessary. But I also feel like it's really, really important to be able to get products off of my skin, especially at night. And so finally what I ended up doing with this one is that I used about 4 or 5 times as much of the Eldridge cleanser, which is like a balm, as she recommends, and I left it on my skin for like a half an hour, and then after that I do feel like most of this came off pretty well. And so at least I feel like I can get this off of my skin if I do it that way, even though that is a fairly expensive process, and even though it does take some time. And I think that there are times during the summer especially that I'm really looking for a good sunscreen that has some foundation in it, and that using one that looks good on my skin might be a really good thing. So I can definitely see myself using this during the summer months, and I'm kind of looking forward to testing it out then. And it is the case that Rosemary Swift is in her late 60s, and so I think that that company does tend to be particularly cognizant of the issues that women who are getting older do face in terms of not wanting to exacerbate the look of the wrinkles and in terms of dry skin. And so I think that there's not a surprise that this foundation is actually working well for me. I think that it was specifically designed with those kinds of issues in mind, so I am kind of happy about that. And in terms of the other products that I'm putting on my face in the video footage, I used the Makeup by Mario setting powder in Neutral Peach. RMS does have a new powder also, and that is a loose powder. And I think it's a nice powder, but I kind of prefer this Makeup by Mario one, and I happen to have that one out. And then I put on a little bit of the RMS bronzer, and I put on the shade Beach Walk Betty, which has just a tiny little bit of a shimmer in it, but I do feel like it's not so much of a shimmer that I can't use it on, say, my foreheads or on my jawline or other areas of my face where I'm not looking for necessarily a lot of shine. And I do think that that's a very nice bronzer with just a tiny little bit of a reddishness color to it that looks a little tiny bit like my skin actually looks when it does get some sun, in terms of it being a little bit bronzy, but also a tiny little bit of a burnt type of a look. And then I put on a blush from RMS, which is called Pomegranate Fizz, and I just used a little bit of this on my the apples of my cheeks and up on my cheekbones, because this is a reddish type of a blush, and I'm kind of interested in red blushes these days. And I think that this one, in terms of a little tiny pop of color on top of that bronzer, which also has a little bit of reddishness in it, I think that that looks nice. And then I put on a lipstick that is called Audrey, and that is what I have on my lips right now also. And that is one of their new legendary lipsticks that is very hydrating, and I think that that is very good for my lips. And I do like the way that this looks, and I especially like the way it wears off of my lips, because as it wears off, it does leave a stain, and it still looks pretty for an extended period of time, even when my lips don't have a lot of lipstick apparently still on them. And then the next product is from Sigma, and Sigma seems to be a company that is especially well known for their brushes, and then they also do offer some makeup products. And so they introduced this new product this year, and this is called the Skin Perfector Hydrating Tint, and it comes in only 6 shades, and my feeling is that it's really supposed to be offering kind of a minimal amount of coverage, and that's why they don't have more shades that are available. And it is made in China, and it does include a variety of different silicones in it. And then in addition, it includes a variety of different skincare ingredients that are supposed to be actually providing moisture and hydration to the skin. And so these include niacinamide, panthenol, sodium hyaluronate, squalane, and a peptide, tripeptide 5. And the website claims that this is supposed to be a balance between skincare and makeup, and that it's supposed to be mostly skincare, but that it also is providing a little bit of a makeup type of look as well. And it's supposed to be sheer to what they say is medium buildable coverage, and that it is supposed to have a dewy, natural looking finish. So I had never tried any products from Sigma before, and so what I thought that I would do is to pick up a little brush to go along with this. So this is a brush that is called the 3D HD Kabuki brush, and it actually is a brush that's fairly dense, and it has some cuts on it. So there are some areas of this brush where you're getting a fairly narrow amount of brush to put it on your skin. And so it's supposed to be able to go into like the areas like around your nose or other small areas on your face, and actually get into there and to brush the foundation into these areas. And they actually are suggesting on their website that you should apply the product with the brush, but I don't really like doing it that way. And I think that that wastes a lot of foundation, and that it requires me to wash the brushes on a regular basis, and I just don't really like putting on foundation that way. So what I did is to put it on with my fingers, which is what I almost always do, and then I use this brush to blend it in so that it went on particularly smoothly. And I think that that worked fine. I think that I'm happy with how this blended into my face, and I think that it looks nice on my face, but I will say that it's offering very, very little coverage in terms of covering over any kind of issues that I have on my skin. And I do think that my skin has reacted pretty well to this. I've worn it a number of times, and I don't feel like my skin has been irritated by it, and I don't mind wearing it in terms of how it feels on my skin. In terms of how it looks on my skin, I think that it looks okay. I really think all of these foundations are looking surprisingly okay compared to a lot of the foundations that I've worn in the past that have exacerbated the look of my wrinkles. I think that of all these foundations that I've tried out for this video, that this one might be exacerbating the look of my wrinkles a tiny little bit, but it really is only a small amount. And I think I might see a little bit more of that in person than I saw in the video footage that I filmed. But in general, I do think this is wearable even by me, even though it might not be the best one of all the ones that I tried out here. And then in terms of the other makeup products that I am putting on over this, I just put on some of one of my favorite blushes because I happen to have it out, and that is the Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks Blush Stick in the color Garçon. And then I also put on one of my favorite lipsticks, which is from Armani, and this is one of their matte lipsticks, and this is in the shade Enigmatic. So I would say that in general, for me, I don't mind wearing this product, but I'm not necessarily seeing what the point of wearing it is, because it's really not giving any coverage. And in terms of the look of my skin, I'm not sure that it's looking better. I think that it might be looking slightly worse when I'm wearing this. And so I'm probably not going to be reaching for this myself, because I'm not really seeing any benefits in doing that, and it does have that silicone in it. But I think it could be that for some people, maybe some people that have skin that's has more pore issues maybe, or other kinds of issues that I don't have so much, maybe this could be a product that they might find to be useful. And it does have those skincare ingredients in them, but I don't feel like my skin is benefiting that much from the skincare ingredients that would be a reason why I would reach for this product rather than just using regular skincare. And whether the fact that it's made in China should matter, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I tend to think that there are some makeup factories in China that actually are fine, and that they are ethical, and that they are putting the ingredients that they say they're putting in into the products that they are selling. And I think that this seems to be one of them, and I certainly am not reacting to it at all. And so the fact that it's made in China isn't necessarily a deal killer for me anyway. And then the final product is from Kylie Cosmetics, and so this is sold at Ulta, and I did try it out in the Ulta store, and I was impressed with it enough that I decided to buy a full bottle and give it more of a try. And this is $32, and it is made in Italy, and it is it comes in 24 different shades, and I think that this is actually fairly similar in terms of at least the packaging to the Dolce & Gabbana product that is also made in Italy. And so it comes in this plastic packaging that is about the same size as this Dolce & Gabbana one. And then in terms of the application, it's also very similar in terms of this nozzle. And so my guess here is that this is probably from the same factory as this Dolce & Gabbana product, and it is considerably less expensive, but I think that both of these seem to be products that I have been doing fine with. Now, I will say that I am not a particular fan of the Kardashian-Jenner family, and so that is not why I am interested in this product. But I do think that it's an interesting product line because it tends to be more clean beauty, and it is coming from Coty. So Coty actually is the majority stakeholder in this brand now. And it does seem to have a lot of good ingredients, and they seem to be made in good factories. And all of the products that I've tried from them actually so far have been really good. And I would really like to do a full video on them, but I kind of feel that no one would be interested in that video. But I think I'm going to have to do it anyway, because in terms of cosmetic lines, I think that these are actually really, really nice products, and they are at a much more affordable price than a lot of the other products that I think are of similar quality. And this is the foundation that I put on today a couple of hours ago, and so we can take a look at this up close and you can see what you think of it. And I think that this is really holding up really nice, and that it actually does look quite nice on my skin. And I did put on some concealer in addition to that, and some other cosmetic products. Now, one thing that I do think is problematic about this company is that if you buy products from them on their website, they seem unwilling to take them back under any circumstances, really. And so that is something that I don't really like, especially for products that are more clean beauty that people might be reacting to. But a lot of the products are available at Ulta, not all of them, but a lot of them are. And so people can go to Ulta and try them out in the store, and you can take them back to Ulta if they don't work out for you. So according to the website, this is supposed to have a buildable light to medium coverage, and it is supposed to offer a natural second skin finish. And they also say that it doesn't clog pores, cling to dry patches, or settle into fine lines, and that it should work for all skin types. And in terms of the ingredients, it's primarily consisting of a variety of silicones, and then it also has sodium hyaluronate in it as a hydrator. And they are suggesting just using 2 or 3 drops of this and then building up if you want more coverage. And my experience with this product is that I do think that it is offering a little bit more coverage than some of these other foundations, and that it is one that I can build up a little bit more easily, but it is one also that I really don't think that it's emphasizing the look of my wrinkles any more than any of these other products, and that my skin does seem to be doing fine with it. I don't think that it has been irritating for my skin at all, and I have worn it quite a bit. Now, I haven't worn it during the summer because I just bought it a month or two ago from Ulta, and so I don't know how it will hold up when I am actually sweating and outside, but I'm not sure that this would be a foundation that I would choose to wear that much when I was planning to be sweating anyway, because this is not one that includes any kind of a sunscreen protection in it. And so I think it's a little bit too bad that this is actually being sold under the Kylie Jenner name, because I think that a lot of people might be a lot more interested in it if it didn't have that name on it. But I actually am really enthusiastic about this product. And I did put on a few other products from the Kylie line as additions to this product in the video footage. And I think that all of these are actually really, really nice products. So I put on their blush powder, which is in a shade called Crush, and that one actually does have some moisturizing type ingredients in it, and I think that it goes on really, really nicely, and that it looks really nice on my skin, and that I really like this color because it's kind of muted. It's supposed to be like a muted apricot type of a color, I think, and in terms of how it looks on my skin, I think that compared to an awfully lot of the blush colors that I have been able to find from other companies, I'm actually really liking this one. And then in terms of lip balms, this Tinted Butter Balm, I think that this is actually a really, really terrific formula, really as good as any of the other lip formulas that I have found. So this comes in a tube that you can click up, and you don't click it down because it's super soft. And I do think that it feels really, really good on my lips, and that it tastes really good. It doesn't have any kind of added flavor in it. And I think that compared to many of the other lip products that are on the market, I think that this one is really stellar. And this blush powder, this is actually made in Italy, and I think that in terms of how well it is performing, I think that that is not a surprise to me at all. I think that compared to many of the other powder blushes that I've tried, that this is a really terrific one. And this lip butter balm, this is made in Korea, and that doesn't surprise me either, because I think that this is a really kind of an advanced formula that is actually really, really nice on my lips, and that I do think is actually good for my lips, and that it also feels really good and tastes good, and I think it looks nice. And then the other product that I'm putting on in the video footage is called Glow Balm, and this is one of those products that just adds a tiny little bit of a color and some dewiness to the skin, and I think that that is actually really nice with this too. And I do think that the foundation has kind of a dry finish to it. I don't think that it is nearly as dewy as, for instance, that RMS foundation, but when I add this Glow Balm to it, I do think it looks really nice. Now, it is the case that I have gotten increasingly picky with regard to the foundations that I pick up, and if they have ingredients in them that I think are going to be problematic, then I just skip them, and if they're offering really full coverage, then I just skip them. But nonetheless, I do think it's really impressive that I've been able to find so many new releases of skin tints this year, and all of them actually have worked for me, that none of them have been appreciably irritating except for that Kosas one, and that all of them actually have looked reasonably good on my skin, and that I have been able to wear them, and that I do think that many other people might be able to wear them successfully as well. In terms of the ones that I think that I will actually wear as time goes on, I think that I will definitely experiment with using that RMS product when I want to have some sun protection on my skin, because I think that of the sunscreens that I've tried so far, that that one is a really good one. But I don't think that I would ever wear that except if I was planning to be getting a lot of sun. Now, as I say, all of these other foundations do have silicone in them, and so if I'm going to wear a silicone foundation, I have to have a pretty good reason for doing so. And so with regard to these foundations, I have worn the Chantecaille one from time to time. I do really like the way this looks on my skin, and I do think this one is actually good for my skin. And I think that also the SPF 15 in this is not very much SPF, obviously, and I'm not putting on a lot of this product, but I think a tiny little bit of SPF in combination with my hat might be a slightly good thing. And I also think that the fact that it is kind of moisturizing for my skin and that supposedly it does have all of these botanical herbs in it, I think that it actually is a very nice looking foundation that I don't mind wearing. Although, to be honest, I've only worn it a few times, other than the ones that I was using it for to test it. And one that I've had since the spring is the Eldridge one, and at first I wasn't really that enthusiastic about this at all, primarily because when I wore it without a primer, I did feel like my skin was a little irritated by it, and I'm not sure if that's just the salicylic acid or if it's something else, but in general, I feel like whenever I do try this on, I'm not that motivated to try it on again, but a lot of people do really like it. And the Sigma one, there's nothing wrong with this one except the fact that I don't feel like it's really providing any noticeable benefits for me. So I don't feel like the skincare is good enough that it makes me want to use it, and I feel like it makes my skin look slightly worse rather than slightly better, and it's not offering any coverage. So this is probably not a good product that I will be using, I don't think. And I do think that the Kylie product and the Dolce & Gabbana product, that they are kind of similar in my mind. Now, the Dolce & Gabbana one does have all that talc in it, and so the feeling of the product is slightly different. But in terms of the coverage that they are giving me and in terms of how they look on my skin, I think that both of these actually are really, really nice, and that they are ones that I don't mind wearing at all. And I think that the Kylie one especially seems to be giving a little bit more of coverage fairly easily, but I think the Dolce & Gabbana one, I can build that one up and get a little more coverage as well. So again, I don't mind wearing these products, but to be honest, probably if I'm thinking about wearing a product with a silicone in it, I will probably go to one of the ones that are on the regular foundation page that actually do have a little bit more coverage. So I do like the Eldridge foundation, for instance, and I really like the House Labs foundation. And so those are the kinds of foundations that I tend to be more likely to turn to if I am going to wear a foundation that has silicones in it because I'm trying to make my skin look better. But I think that both of these are actually really good products, and I think that the Kylie one is especially good considering the reasonable price. So thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video. And I realized when I was making this video that I really don't feel like I have a very good sense of what kinds of foundations the people who tend to watch this channel do or do not use. And so I would be really interested in having you share that information with me in the comments section. That could be really helpful in terms of the reviews that I do in the future. In addition, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, then I hope you will do that. And also, if you liked this video, then I hope you will hit like. And Coco and I do love you very much, so thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. Ba-da-ba-da-da-bum, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.